be with you until 9 o'clock, joined by Dr. Dan McMillan. He is the founder of Saving Democracy in America and hanging out with us for at least this one more segment. A couple things that I wanted to get to with you, Dan, and we were talking about how big money in politics has pretty much corrupted the whole system. It is the fly in the ointment. But and before I get to a couple more items, just things, we are so divided right now. And you and I have had this conversation a number of times. And I think one of the statements that I remembered you making is that moneyed interests have always stayed on top by process of divide and conquer, which keeps the middle class and the working class from seeing their shared economic interest by setting us up against each other by race, religion, immigrant, and American born, and so on. And
I think that's true, and I think it's a distinctive part of our political history because we really are by far and away the most diverse of the world's democracies. I mean, you look at like our cousins in Europe, France and Germany, and so on. Until very recent immigration, those countries, it's one race, one ethnic group. Most of the countries of Western Europe are either almost all Protestant or almost all Catholic, and so on and so forth. So it's always been a temptation, and I think but it's gotten worse and worse and worse in our politics in the last 6, 8, 10 years. And I guess one way of putting it, is that from Democratic politicians, you get the message that, your problem is not, the Wall Street firms that pay for all my campaigns and my buddies' campaigns. Your problem is racist, gun-toting rednecks who live in flyover country and who will always hate you for the color of your skin or for your sexual orientation. They'll never give you a chance. They don't care if your child is slaughtered in a school shooting, and they want to ram their Christian beliefs down your throat. And on the Republican side, the message is, your problem is not these Wall Street firms who pay for my campaigns and won't pay their fair share of taxes so that your small business gets stuck holding the bag, and who crashed the economy in '08 so that maybe you lost your home in a foreclosure. Your problem is lazy minorities who suck up your tax dollars sponging off the government. Your problem is immigrants who want to take your jobs. Your problem is the godless supporter of abortion on demand who has no respect for your religion. And of course, I'm not saying that that guns aren't an important issue or that abortion is not an important issue. These issues are very important. I'm not saying that immigration is not an important issue. That issue is also very important. But I think it's also true that both parties, rather than trying to arrive at reasonable solutions or partial solutions here, milk the issues for anger. And I guess another way to make my point about the money is, the anger has escalated off the charts kind of with every election cycle since 2016. And I think it's no coincidence that has coincided in time exactly with the same period where the cost of election campaigns skyrocketed. I mean, from 2016 to 2020, the federal elections, White House and Congress together, went in constant dollars, inflation-adjusted 2020 dollars, from $7 billion to $14.4 billion spent by individuals and pressure groups to buy influence in Washington. I guess another way I'll make my point is that, Jeff, this anger, the way that the partisan anger has escalated, the way that, race has come kind of back into our politics in a kind of big way that it wasn't really in our politics, I think, as much, say, 8 years ago, is that, we didn't, it's not like, Vladimir Putin's agents put something in the water and you and I and everyone else woke up 8 years ago one morning and we said to ourselves with one voice, I feel unfulfilled and dissatisfied with my life because I don't have enough anger, enough hostility. And I got to get on the stick here and find somebody to hate. My point is, this isn't coming from us. Yes, this anger that politicians encourage, this divisiveness that they use for their own ends, it is filtering down into our society. The poison is infecting the voters. It is infecting us. But it's not happening because we the people, are demanding it, because we want it.
Absolutely.
It's not happening at the level of society. It's happening at the political level, and then filtering down. The poison is sort of trickling down from politics to the rest of society.
Absolutely. Dr. Dan McMillan, my guest this morning. All right, Dan, I got a couple more. I'm going to come pretty fast at these.
Of course.
Why both parties? Why are they fielding candidates who are too old to be president? And I just I want to say is this the best we can do on either side? But the bottom line, Joe Biden, if elected in 2024, is too old. He's too old now. And former President Trump, the same thing, probably too old. If he's not too old now, why do both parties continue to push just these two instead of giving us some more viable options?
I think that basically the money, I think that neither party has got a whole lot of bench strength, that neither party has a really robust younger generation coming up, because I think that more and more, especially already I think with the turn of the century, the money problem goes back to the 1980s, and of course it skyrocketed really after Citizens United in 2010, but already I think by the turn of the century, anyone thinking about going into politics, they go to a campaign manager, and the first question the campaign manager will ask them is, how much money can you raise? And I think that a lot of people say, I don't feel like going to Washington to be an overpaid telemarketer, because that's what they are. They spend all their time on the phone. They call it dialing for dollars, raising money for the next campaign. And I think you start seeing fewer and fewer good people going into politics. I'm not saying that there aren't any good people in politics, but I think that's one of the reasons why neither party has been able to recruit a younger generation of people who are really leaders, because they're no longer leaders. They're fundraisers. Fundraising is the number one part of their job. And I think it's eviscerated both parties. And I think we the people are going to have to rebuild both parties from the ground up.
Well, and that kind of leads to the last thing. I mean, the reality is that almost every aspect of our political system is broken, from elections and the way votes are counted, which is always, which anymore is the big controversy. Did we win? Were we cheated? The money aspect, the divisiveness, all of this leaves the rest of us, Dan, just kind of reeling and not really knowing what to believe, who to believe, and to how much confidence or stock we can put in the entire system at this point.
I think that the American people's loss of faith in our system is, for many Americans, it's complete. And it really is, this loss of faith, of trust in our institutions, is itself a constitutional crisis. But I think but the good news is the American people get it. They know it's not working. Now the political class, politicians in Washington, the national media, they still haven't got the memo. They still somehow think that they're doing an okay job. But the people, I think, are ready for change. And it's just a question of getting the word out. Now, getting the word out isn't easy, because the national media do not want to talk about money in politics, because they're part of that system. The campaign ads are a profit center and so on. Obviously, anyone who's running for office, they don't go to the voters and say, look, folks, I'll do my best to get you some crumbs from the table, but my donors come first. So it's a closed system, and it's hard to break through all the noise. But part of our strategy is, the play in New Hampshire is, if, say, by 2027, we can get enough New Hampshire voters to agree with us, money's the number one problem. I'm fed up. I want my country back. I want voter-owned elections. Then it becomes news. Then the candidates can't avoid talking about it. Then the national media can't avoid talking about it. And I think that if we can break into the national conversation and get this idea out enough, I think the idea itself, I've just found what I happen again and again talking to groups, talking to individuals. People always say to me, this is a great idea. I hope you can make it happen. But, the system's so corrupt. How do you make it happen? Well, I think you make it happen by just getting enough Americans to know about it and to validate it and sort of have some hope that it can happen. And we'll reach a tipping point. And I think we will make it happen. And although this reform is not going to solve all our problems, again, if we can just take a first step, get the country moving again, and give the American people hope again that they're not beaten by the system, then I think it's amazing how quickly it can go. Because the ace in the hole that we Americans have got that no other country has is that this form of government, the democratic form of government, it's in our blood, it's in our DNA, it defines who we are. And, that's why I sort of feel, if this were happening, if I see what we see in Washington, if this were happening to Germans or Canadians or Outer Mongolians, I might be pessimistic about them, but I'll never be pessimistic about Americans.
Absolutely.
Because this is so important to us.
Dr. Dan McMillan, he is the founder of Save Democracy in America. Go check it out. Just Google it, click on the page. You can learn more about Dan McMillan and really the idea of democracy dollars. Dan, always a pleasure talking to you, my friend. I look forward to catching up to you again down the line.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
All right, we'll take our final break of this hour.